All right, folks, we're live. Good afternoon, everybody. It's me, Nick, at Printavo, over on the sales team. How's everybody doing this Thursday afternoon? We getting, I see Mike's here. Hey, what's up? Let us know in the chat. We would love to know where you're watching from. So type in the chat where you're watching from. We'd love to know. We get folks from all over the country, all over the world. We've had folks from outside of the U.S. a few times. All right, nice Helen out on this couch. And then, of course, we're real excited for our guest today. She is at Printavo, but before we talk to her, we're going to introduce our co-host. He's here every time. He's great. It's Matt Marcotte over on the customer success team. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, I think you have to say I'm great, even if I'm not. I think it's in the contract, isn't it? So thank you for doing what you have to do. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm super stoked for this one. I was super stoked when Mary joined the team just to learn more about what she does. I'll be honest, I don't understand the ad world, marketing world. I don't get it. I just don't know. I talked about when I got the job at Printavo, like a lot of what I'm excited about is really diving into a whole new world, right? Just understanding software, understanding the tech side. Pretty good when it comes to the print shop side and sales. But this is all new world to me. And also being a small print shop owner, this is stuff that is very valuable to learn. And I've thought about, do I have to outsource? Who do I have to get? I'm stoked to be able to get to learn from our guest today, Mary, Printavo's very own Mary. Hopefully my business partner, yep, Mike Kodak, he's watching too. Sound and Fury is going to be learning a lot from you today, Mary. So no pressure, but our business relies on it. So don't overthink it, but don't mess up. No, I'm kidding. This is going to be great. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Mary from Printavo. Mary, how are you doing today?
Hey, I am doing super swell, and I'm really happy to be here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I think there's a lot of misconception around what it takes to get started doing digital advertising. You know, today we're going to talk a little bit about Google Ads, but really so much of this is just like a thinking exercise for like what it means to start amplifying, you know, so much of the work you're already doing. I think people think like SEO is free and Google Ads cost money, but all of these things take time, they take energy, they take effort, and there's a lot of power and there are a lot of hacks and a lot of really cool opportunities that we've seen for this space and starting to kind of jump into ads. So happy to be here, and yeah, happy Thursday, everybody.
Love it. Woo. Awesome. Let's start with an easy one. Mary, tell us about yourself and tell us how you got into marketing.
Yeah, so I got into marketing about 8 years ago. And actually, I came from a sales and customer success background. So my very first marketing job was right when I was coming out of working for a silk screen printing shop in South Pasadena. So shout out to Ellen Silk Screening in South Pass. And it's because, you know, when you're doing sales at a silk screen printing shop, as probably many of you guys know, you end up wearing a lot of hats. And one of the best ways to like hustle for me to get more of my own customers and grow my customer base was by starting to expand even the marketing that we were doing at Ellen's. And then, you know, that was a jumping off point for me to go work at a small agency after that. And then, you know, I've been digging in since about 2012. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. So actually, silkscreen printing sales was kind of what brought me to marketing. So, which is why I'm super happy to be back here.
Amazing.
Talk about full circle from print shop into ad and marketing, and then into Printavo. Nice full circle you've done there. That's awesome.
Exactly. Now, I know other people are thinking this. I'm going to ask it. I know it might be a dumb question. But what are Google Ads? Can you explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old? What are these?
I am a 5-year-old. I don't even understand. So please.
Well, there are so many different types of ads. I think that, you know, like today, if you were to go and get started with the Google Ads platform, you could do so much more than just your standard text search ads, which is, I think, you know, probably a lot of what we'll focus on today because it is sort of like the base of where you want to really get started. But imagine that you're searching for anything on Google. The very first results that you see almost without a doubt, especially in any industry with even the like easiest bit of competition is typically a sponsored text ad, but right now, getting started on Google, you can do so much more than that. You can do display. You can do advertising on kind of different Google partner sites. So like all of the videos, like all kind of the ad roll that you see before a video on YouTube, all of that really comes through the Google Ads platform. So there's kind of like the OG thought of like Google Ads is just that like search text ad, but really there's so much more that's kind of expanded in that stack. And I don't work for Google, but I still think that there's so much opportunity.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just having an understanding of, because honestly, I think Google Ads, and literally all I thought was, so when I type in print shop in Chicago, when I see that ad, that's what I assumed we were talking about. So already I'm learning that, okay, that's the OG way. It's the old school way of thinking about it. There's actually a lot more to that already. So I'm excited to kind of learn and figure out, okay, what else is there in that world?
Yeah. Now, Mary, you mentioned a few times there's a lot of opportunity in the space. I guess, could you tell us more about the opportunities? And then I guess another question related, would this work for anybody? Is there a certain size shop you should be, or could anybody, get leads and get sales off of these Google ads?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. And there's definitely long and short answers there. So I'll dig in a little bit actually with the opportunity. So one of the things, that kind of inspired me to want to do this conversation is just the growth and trends of people who are searching for kind of silk screen printing shops near them, over the last few years. And I've got a quick screen share that I think really can illustrate this. Kind of what we've seen is that basically these charts are over the period of the last 2 years kind of search volume. And so what we're seeing, and this is just kind of some keywords that I decided to take here, but this works, like you can see this in the embroidery space. You see this really all across kind of the promotional products kind of arena, is that more and more people are starting to look for printers and shops that are near them. They want custom work and they really want to be supporting locally. And these searches are the ones that have really climbed. We see some dips around COVID, but actually kind of as we've started to emerge from there, for the most part, almost all of these kind of graphs, if I was to go, right, and draw a line right through there, are really up and to the right. So there has been an explosive growth and people really looking for kind of the services that, Printavo customers provide. And so that's really when I say opportunity. The opportunity is that more and more people, I think, are starting to say, you know what, I don't want to do a custom ink. I want to support local. I want to kind of find somebody that's near me that's doing something in my community. And that's really where I think actually the biggest advertising opportunity is. And we'll talk a little bit more about exclusions. There are ways that you can make sure that you're running your ads locally. There's ways to exclude to make sure that you're not falling into kind of search spaces that are outside of your community. And this is even a way to kind of save money to just start advertising to the people around you. So this is really where kind of the opportunity piece comes from.
Okay, so you'd almost say that really any size shop could do this. It all depends on what the opportunity you're trying to achieve is kind of what you're saying there, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing, we can talk size shop, we can talk type of printing. I think some of the things that you kind of need to have in order to start advertising. So one, it really helps to have a website. So you really have to have a website. That's first and foremost. And you've got to have you really want to have some goals in mind. So I know that kind of everybody has different revenue models. So you can have kind of the goal of trying to generate leads. So that's bringing in new customers through Google Ads who potentially are recurring clients, just new client opportunities. Or you can be trying to sell merch, right? Like a one-off sale. And those are two completely different goals with two completely different kind of success measurements. And if you are kind of trying to generate leads, making sure that you have a space to take those people to. Do you have a form on your website? Maybe do you have a landing page that you can build out? Like, do you have the operational resources today to start thinking about how you can create an entire experience? Because kind of, we can talk about getting people to click on the ad, but then are you set up after that click to do the follow-up that you need to do? From a sales perspective, if you're generating that lead, do you have somebody sitting and watching those form fills come in? Are you using some kind of marketing automation tool? Or are you using a jot form? So I think that a lot more of it is really less about how big is your shop, but how ready is your shop to kind of commit to the, operational setup and really like an operational excellence that I think all businesses really need to start moving more quickly toward in kind of this new, digital transformation space that we're living in, is really starting to think through like, what is the entire user experience? And oftentimes people are scared, I think, of ads because they're scared of, you can be scared of wasting money. That's definitely an opportunity. But ultimately, you need to make sure that you have something on the other end to catch those leads and catch those opportunities as they come in. Was that a good, how was that?
Yeah, that's a great answer. And it brings back a kind of a reoccurring theme that we've kind of uncovered throughout a lot of these conversations. And that is that we're 21 years into the 21st century. So if you're not currently hosting a website and you don't have a form and you aren't at least building up the stepping stones to get to utilizing Google Ads, you're probably going to be left behind a little bit. Now, not necessarily if you've got good word of mouth or you've got enough of a book of business where it kind of keeps going, that's fine. But as you kind of showed that great chart, that really COVID has kind of reimagined the need for local, right? So you can literally see where people are starting to support local again. They're not going to the custom inks. They're not going to the websites and just saying, oh, just send me shirts. They're, again, trying to support local. So if you want to have a real running chance at it in the modern business world, you kind of have to start putting those things together and working your way toward it. So that was actually a super solid answer. And also tells me that with the shop that I own, we're not using Google Ads yet, but website, check. Form field, check. Okay, so I'm starting to understand the pieces to build up to Google Ads. And again, if you're a shop that's watching this now or later on YouTube and you don't have these things, I didn't take anything what Mary said as like, oh, you don't have it, don't do it. So no, now you actually know what do you have to start to do to work your way toward it and to start taking that first step. Get that website built, right? Get a form field on that website. Start taking those steps toward Google Ads, and then we'll be able to get there. So that was a great question. And again, it doesn't matter how big or small you are. It just matters of, okay, have you done those steps to even make it feasible quite yet? So that made perfect sense to me.
Yeah. And just like to zoom out for a second, this is Google Ads focused. We'll jump into a few kind of tips and tricks for navigating that system. But really, those are the basics for any kind of digital advertising. Like if you don't want to do ads or you want to start thinking about doing kind of more, remarketing on Facebook, or if you want to like start trying to find, new people on Instagram for your business, like having some of these basics set up and really having, I think like one of the biggest keys is having that goal in mind. Like when you sit down and you think about why you want to do this, like, do you want to do it because you think it's a thing you should do or because everybody's doing it? Or do you want to grow your incoming lead volume 20%? Or do you want to increase sales of merch that you're printing, like your own brand, 40%, therefore you're trying to find a new stream? This is really all about getting new people that you can't reach today doing what you're doing. Because growing social, growing organic, these things do take time. They do take effort. And that time and effort is money. So it's not like it's free to post on social because somebody's got to put their time into it, right? It's not like it's free to write a blog. Somebody's still writing the blog. I think there's this misconception that advertising costs money and all this other shit is free. But that's not really true. And this can take a lot of time, building this organic base. And you have to do it because the end game is for all this stuff to work symbiotically to help you grow your business. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of make that aside. It's like, once you know where you want to go, then I think advertising becomes a really smart decision to start thinking about, where do I invest to acquire people I can't reach today because I'm at my limit. Like, I'm going to keep trying to grow this baseline. But if you're sitting here today and you're like, this is like, I'm just not getting anybody else coming in through the like typical stuff that we're doing. Like, how many emails can you send? Like, if you've wrung the towel dry, then I think it's just time to start thinking about advertising or where you're going to start putting money kind of beyond some of those basics. That's really critical. So.
Absolutely. Speaking of money, how much money should we be thinking about budgeting if we're starting out? Like, what's a grand, couple grand? What are we looking at here? Yeah.
Also, again, a question that really starts to depend on a few different factors. So I think you can probably start with as little as putting $500, in that monthly. I think some of these numbers I'll put out, I think they're arbitrary. I've spoken with agencies who say that they don't work with people who won't put down at least $3,000, right? I mean, on some level, like, there's going to be a startup period with any of these accounts. And so starting kind of as smart as you can in your setup, being thoughtful in how you're building out, your campaigns, your ad groups, your keywords, which are some things we'll talk about kind of we'll touch a little bit, on what those things mean, how that like architecture will work. But just, I mean, one, you got to think about like, how much do you have even, one thing that I really think all businesses should start thinking about is like, how much money am I willing to put forth a month, or how much money am I already putting toward marketing? So say that you have anybody, or like, do you work with any freelancers who are already writing blogs for you? How much time are you spending on social? Have you thought about the hourly? If you can equate that and start thinking about, how much am I willing to put into marketing on a kind of a monthly basis? Starting to build out a marketing budget, I think is a really important thing to think through. And typically what people will say is that marketing budget can be up to 10%. ROI is a really good question, Kristen. I'll talk through measuring the ROI of that and some other numbers you may want to really start thinking about to measure that ROI. But I think one of the kind of rules of thumb for a while has been put like 10% of your revenue back into marketing, which for some people can be very scary to put 10% of your revenue back into marketing. And so this is kind of a commitment space, because the attribution is never going to be 100%. You're never going to be able to trace dollars spent here, like all 100% of those dollars back. There is a lot that you will be able to kind of attribute back, especially through platforms like Google, when you're setting up your conversion types. I think for ROI, so in order to kind of even start calculating your ROI, or to even calculate, right, like your return on ad spend, I think it's also really important to think about, how right. So imagine that we have two goals. So Oluwaseyi, okay, so you're talking about the best kind of goal to start with. I think it really depends on what you're trying to do in your business. So if you're trying to kind of grow lead gen, and you're bringing in leads today. So say that you're turning on a campaign on May 13th. One, I'd give that campaign 2 weeks to like really start humming. And so you're going to have an iron stomach for these 2 weeks to not touch it, because once you set things up, you're going to need to give them some time to go. And by day 4, you may really not be feeling those results, but you have to give things a minute. So say that somebody came in kind of 2 weeks from today, like you generated a new lead. You need to start thinking about, in your business, how long does it take a lead to close? So if someone comes into your site today, say that you do have forms set up through maybe organic or kind of direct traffic, or through some social promotion that you're doing, do you know today the average time that it takes for somebody to fill out a form from that moment to buying. So I think that's a really important number to get a hold of, because if you start generating lots and lots of leads and they're not closing in that month, or they're like, it's important to understand what is the realistic timeline for them to close, because then that's where you can start calculating that return. So if you generate 60 leads in June, you may be seeing that return come in over a period of time. Some people may close less than the average period of time. Some people may close, over a longer span. And so also tracking the people that come in through those kind of ad space is really important. One thing that we do in our business that we've started kind of doing more aggressively is when you go in to set up your Google ads, you'll see that you can put a tracking template on the campaign level. And that tracking template, I suggest kind of using the UTM structure there. And if you guys want, if we have some time at the end, I can actually hop into an account and kind of show you where some of these things are. But by tracking that, you're able to kind of, in that template, you're able to plug in like the source of this person is Google Ads. They're coming in through this campaign. And so that's another element of making sure that you're kind of tracking things all the way through.
So it sounds to me, sorry to interrupt, but it sounds to me like with a lot of things ROI, it's not necessarily as easy as like stock market, right? If you put money into Doge before SNL and then you sold right before SNL, your ROI is this, right? If you wait until after SNL, your ROI is this, right? Those are easy ROIs on that. This is going to be kind of a drivable ROI where like you're really investing in the long term here, right? And like you said, it's hard to know. Like if I got 60, how do I know like if they all closed? You might close one now, 1 in 2 weeks, 1 in 3 weeks. But the more you drive that forward, the more closures you're going to get. And again, the more you're opening up that pipeline of new people that before you weren't able to reach out to. And then again, of course, you should be utilizing things like constant contact marketing, which is separate in this conversation, right? But emails, things like that, being present so they see you multiple times to help close them maybe in the future too. But either way, it sounds like the ROI might not be a direct ROI out of the gate, but we should still be doing it. And I also learned from one of our previous guests that things like marketing, those can be write-offs for your business, right? So you can put that money, 10% of your revenue into marketing, helping you get more revenue, and what you're allocating for that marketing, you can then talk to your profit first folks, and you can actually get your bookkeeper and everything to compartmentalize that, and now you get an extra write-off. So it seems like it's worth it, but I like what you said there, having an iron stomach. I already know for a fact that you've not said that. I'm going to be doing this weekend for my shop, and I guarantee by day 3 or 4, I'll be like, I'm tired. Nope. This money's too hard to make, and I'm just losing it for nothing. Stop. And it sounds like that would be like the worst thing I can do. I've got to just like shut up and just take it for that, like let it go. And then after 2-3 weeks, it's going to slowly start trickling in, which makes sense too. Especially
for lead gen. Now, if you want to sell merch, okay, like if you want to sell shirts you've already printed, or like if you want to sell goods, that ROI starts coming in really fast. And if you have your account set up correctly and you make sure like, so part of this is even how you have products listed out on your site. There's connections where you can connect that back to ads. Like those are kind of shopping ads. It's a different type of ad type. But if you're setting up kind of good shopping ads, you will get that. You'll be able to see the ROI on like a good sold really quickly. On a lead, it's going to be more complicated. And what it's going to require likely is even potentially like a CRM, something that can kind of take that data, right? That can like take the form data, that can gather the like UTM parameters, that's smart enough to understand that Google Ads was the source, and where you can track those people over time. Kristen, sales rep or ad marketing? Okay, that is a fun question. I guess, like, do you have enough leads today for a sales rep? Like if you hired a sales rep today, do they have enough work to do? Okay.
Do what Tracy did. Tracy hired somebody who can do both.
Yeah, get you someone who can do both.
I think that's the perfect world for Tracy over there. The rest of us might not be able to find that so easily. Rub it in, Tracy.
If you brought somebody in to do marketing for you and they started generating leads, the question is, who would those leads go to in the business? I mean, a lot of this comes back to like really thinking about your operational setup, right? Like if you brought it, you bring a sales rep in, sales reps, unless they're doing some level of outbound, which is a totally different motion than sales reps who are responding to inbound leads. So that's an important thing too. If you want to bring in a sales rep and you're going to take that sales rep and you're going to give them a list of accounts to go hustle on, like targets that you want to reach out to, you want them to like start calling on schools or sports teams or, whatever vertical it is that you're trying to hit up, then that could be an interesting avenue. But then, that sales rep is also going to eventually need somebody to start supporting them, like making sure that they have the collateral they need to be effective in selling, right? Like effective selling and marketing tie in together, right? So that becomes kind of like a tricky question. But, I wouldn't hire an inbound sales rep till you've got a steady stream of inbound leads, which is those leads that are just kind of like showing up on your doorstep, either from organic or from paid, right? So, and that's just a strategy kind of question of like, where do you want to go? Do you want to invest in doing outbound work? And Matt, you've had some experience even in outbound in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you said too, if you're trying to decide like what do I need, if you don't have leads ready that you're just like not able to get to, then you probably want to go and do, it sounds like ads, or actually having someone that can actually go out and drum up business and be good with being told no and cold calling people, which I've done for many years and it's effective, but also it comes down to cost, right? Now, it might not cost me anything to have to go to 10 print shops and get business, or go to 10 different tattoo shops to try to get their business, right? But I cost something to go do that. I cost something, and I'm also not doing work that's generating revenue in that time either. So again, it goes back to one of your earlier points, Mary, of any way you're looking at it, it's going to cost you something. If I'm out for a week trying to find business, how much money did I lose not producing business at the same time? So if I look at that and I start thinking, like when you said $500 is a minimum, I guarantee there were some people in the chat that might have been like me and gone like, that stings a little bit, but it doesn't, right? If you break that down, you're talking about like $125, exactly $100 a week for $500 a month, right? So now I don't have to necessarily say, okay, this person needs to go try to find business all week, or I got to try to find business all week, or my partner, Mike, right? You can say, okay, Google, do your thing. Let's put 500 for the month. Let's start to do this. At the same time, we can be working on our social media. We can be working on prints that are in-house. We can be working on testing new products. So it also lends back again to time is money, and are you using it the best that you can? Because either way, you're spending it, right? But are you actually utilizing it and letting it go to work for you? So I think it kind of circles around to that question again of which one's better. Kind of depends on what you're doing. Or again, Tracy, who just created her own person, is what it looks like she did because it's her daughter. So in a perfect world, make a person on your own that is a salesperson and a marketer. And I'm sure in Tracy's case, also a customer service person and a screen printer. So I guess do as Tracy, but the rest of us will have to go with what Mary's teaching us here today. That's great.
Spending money to make money. Lot talking about, I got to ask it. Should we just hire someone to do this? If we don't know about Google AdWords, is it worth it to just hire someone to do it for us?
That's a good question. This is such a tricky space. I think one of the conversations we were even having before is I feel like I have met a lot of, so like Google Ads and SEO, like a lot of these sort of marketing spaces that are thrown around a lot, they come with a lot of snake oil salesmen in the mix. It's really hard to find reputable agencies. Oftentimes when you hire like contractors to do some of this work, they want, right, a $2,500 retainer plus the cost of the ads. And then that $2,500 retainer, they're not actually going to be looking at your ads all the time. That's for like a little bit of their work to do this and that. I think I highly suggest, any owner or kind of get started on your own. And I'm a digital marketer. I want you to hire me. But I think that it's important, if you have the budget to go out today and hire somebody full time for $65,000, then hire a digital marketing specialist and have them manage your digital ads and your social to start growing out a full scale marketing team. That's great. If you don't have that, and most businesses don't just have that allotment to go and hire that person, and you got a lot of other hires you need to get going, then I highly suggest there's a lot of online tutorials that will help you get set up. I think really start thinking through the basics. I think people can start their own accounts by themselves. Think through even one campaign that you'd like to start today. So say that you could do one thing. Say that maybe it's looking at the opportunity that we saw. I just want to start today doing a small scale search text, text campaign for people who are looking for custom, t-shirts near me. Pick a handful of keywords and kind of start setting that up. You can put a very low, sort of daily budget, see who bites. But I feel like it's really important for owners, especially today, to kind of get started by yourself and really learn this platform, understand this platform. And then eventually this is a task you're not going to want to own. You're going to want to have somebody who you can bring in who can really help you scale it. But I think it helps even when you're hiring that person, when you start going through some of the hurdles of setting it up yourself. And it even will help you hire somebody who's not going to rip you off.
Well,
so that was great question. Real quick. So Tracy had a good idea. Tap into local university with social media marketing degree programs and offer internships for junior and senior students. They need hours to graduate, and it's usually a free internship. That sounds like it's got potential. She does make a point too that you'll need to have someone there that already has some knowledge to make sure they're not totally just running off the rails. But just curious to your take on this, Mary, with the current world of, if you don't like it, don't do it. Hire somebody. I agree that an owner, I need to, as an owner myself, I want to learn this stuff so I can actually have a working idea and not just pretend to, right? I actually have a working idea, but let's say I get the working idea and I get it. Maybe I have some slight success with it, but I'm just not enjoying it, right? And maybe I don't have the $2,500 to get somebody on a retainer. Is there an opportunity on things like Upwork or any of those kind of crowdsourcing? Or is it kind of danger zone because you're dealing with this personal information about your business? What's your thoughts on some of those lower hanging employment opportunities online?
Yeah, that's a really tricky one. So one thing I think is really important when running these accounts, it's really important to understand the industry that you're targeting, right? So hiring someone kind of willy-nilly to just come in and maybe do stuff from time to time, one of the biggest things that I do on a day-to-day in our ads account, for example, is going through search terms that people have used that have triggered our ads to appear on Google and excluding them or adding them to my campaigns. And it really, I think, helps. This is one of the things I think that people forget about doing. Even agencies don't really do very well for their clients at this point. But I think it's one of the biggest keys to saving money. And it's a kind of task that can be owned by, I think, different people in the shop who understand the space. If I'm going in there and I'm seeing, right, because there's different types of keywords that you can use in your campaigns. There's broad match, there's phrase match, there's exact match. And I actually have a few different links I can kind of send even in the chat that can help you guys dig in a little bit deeper into what those mean. But one of the important things is just having somebody go in and commit to looking through those terms to make sure that you are not kind of continuing to spend money on things that don't make sense for your business. And then you can try to find somebody in the shop, or it can be a task you can own. It's actually a very administrative task.
Quick thought here. I just want to jump in. I really like Tracy's idea. I think Tracy's idea of targeting someone at a local university that has a marketing degree program they need to finish is a good idea because it will remedy some of the problems Mary's talking about. In other words, if you're going on Upwork or if you're going for an agency, you're competing with all that person's other clients. But if you can find that sort of really special person that Tracy's talking about, someone in a marketing program that needs this experience, think about it from their perspective. You have two things they don't. You have a brand to market and you have money to spend. So even if it was an internship, but I don't think you should do unpaid internships, folks. I think you should pay folks an hourly wage. Once you do, they're going to get a lot of experience out of it. So they will probably be doing what Mary's talking about, caring about your account. That's really important. One quick little anecdote. Before Mary started at Printavo, we had a firm that didn't care about our account. And it was really noticeable when they were just totally checking out. As the person fielding some of those leads, it was super noticeable. So I think Mary is got a really good piece of insight here. The person who's looking at your AdWords account needs to care about it, or else you're just throwing money into the trash can. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make that point.
Real quick, too, I wanted to answer Tracy. She asked about kind of like more in depth. I believe we're going to be doing some more things in the future as Mary continues to work with Printavo. And we don't have anything on the books yet, but I have a good feeling that there are probably going to be multiple webinars where we dive into this topic. So stay tuned. I'm sure that you folks have probably already noticed that our marketing has gotten way better since Mary joined in. And I'm sure you'll be seeing more of that improvement, as well as more opportunities for gaining the knowledge that is Mary. So stay tuned. That brings on to a question, though, that I had. We're starting to throw some terms around, and some of them I get, some of them I don't get. So definitely wanted to know, like, are there some key terms? I know you said keywords. You also think like UAT or TAU. I don't know. There were some letters you threw out there, and I just kind of nodded like I knew what you were talking about. I had no idea. So what are some key terms that are important for people to have a basic grasp on when going into this?
Cool. So we can start from maybe like the very top. Imagine that when you kind of go in, how do we feel about it? Just a quick screen share. Is that cool?
Yeah, for sure.
A good screen share. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do a quick one. And let's see. Okay.
And then for everybody, when we're doing the screen share, if it's if the chat is taking up too much of your window, or you can't see Mary's screen share, just hit that little arrow button and get rid of that chat window, and it'll make it all a lot bigger for you.
Cool. So let's talk through some of the basic spaces in Google Ads real quick. So first we have campaigns. Campaigns are kind of the highest level of like the hierarchy of building out something in ads. So you really start with the campaign. So kind of here's one of our campaigns running. I'm going to click on it real quick. Within campaigns, we have ad groups. So say that you start a campaign and your campaign might be something for your shop for local. You may have different things you want to target in here. People looking for custom t-shirts. People may be looking for other different types of custom merch, right? And then when you click on essentially any ad group, within there you have keywords. Okay, so these keywords, right, and they have different match types, so exact match, phrase match. And there's a really good article I kind of bumped in here in the chat for you guys to check out that will help you unpack kind of exactly what exact match or phrase match are. Broad match is going to be the most dangerous one. We don't do too many of those because they really do require that you keep an eye on the search terms that come in. So search terms is a really fun thing that you can look at, which is seeing what did people actually search? What was the match type that brought them to your ads? So as you can see, like some people, especially on our broad match terms, might be more so looking for like how to get started with screen printing, or like, questions that really like, I don't want our ads to show for. So if I don't want my ad to show for a term, then what I'll do is I'll go into search terms. And this is kind of what I was saying is one of those things that actually a lot of pretty good agencies don't do. And it's one of the ways that you get lost spending a lot of money is if you're not keeping an eye on what's bringing people to your ads, especially when you're running more broad match terms, then that's one way for money to kind of go out the window. And when people talk about losing a lot of money on ads, it's typically because they're not keeping an eye on filtering out some of the junk that comes in. Google's going to do everything they can to show your ad as often as they can, to charge you as often as they can, essentially. So what you want to do is click in, and you can add something as a negative keyword. And when you add something as a negative keyword here, you can choose to add it like just to the ad group level. So when we talk about levels, this is just for this specific ad group. You can add it to the campaign. Or what I've done is I've created like a master list. So if I just don't want this term ever, ever, ever to pop up, like I never want our ads to pop up on this term, then I'll add it to my master list. And depending on how I add it, like if I take off these brackets, then it will be a broad match. I'll be excluding it broadly. Keeping the brackets on will mean that people will, if people search exactly for this, then my ads will never show. But if maybe like one word is off, they still will show. Or phrase match, kind of is somewhere in between, where some of these terms, like if this phrase is included in the search, then they won't show. So, also kind of a big one is landing pages. This is really like, where are people going to, right? When they land on after they click on your ads. And so those are kind of the basics, you have your ads and extensions. This is where the actual ads that you build live. So I'd say those are like the biggest terms, and that's like, the biggest terms are also basically modules within Google that, you click into to get different work done. So I hope.
So one question was, what's a negative keyword? And I think you kind of summed it up there nice at the end. Is that's kind of saying like that's a keyword that you want to exclude. It's literally a negative word. So you're saying like if someone looks by that, I don't want to ever come as a result to that. Yeah. So if that's, you're saying like you type that in, you'll never show up in there. And that's important, right? Because like if you have a phrase and like one word yields some results that are like really against what you're about, like you don't want to be seen on that same page, right? That puts you into a bad light potentially with your customer. So using that as an exclusion word, you're actually saying like this is a negative word. It's a no, I don't want this. And then you're kind of setting that aside. So I think that's what a negative keyword is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can preemptively add them. You can add as many negative keywords as you want. Like you don't have to just go into search terms. So who makes the negative key? Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to let you.
No, go ahead. Questions. No, please. If you, it's there too. Yeah. If you're seeing it, so you're making them then, correct? Mary, do you find that's better to like, if you already know to put them in there? Or do you think it's better to do what you're saying, which is keep an eye on them? And if like it's not being used, then you're spending money on it for no reason, and then you're putting it into negative. Is there a preference there?
Yeah, I think keyword management is like one of the biggest jobs, and it really is twofold, like kind of what you're alluding to, Matt. I think number one is preemptively adding negative keywords. So making sure that you just don't want to show, like one thing actually to add, a negative keyword I suggest adding. So sometimes you can bid on your competitors. And sometimes if your competitor is like really, really big and has a bunch of money, you never want to get like stuck in their advertising sequence if you can't compete with what they're going to pay. So like some shops may even want to consider preemptively adding like custom ink as an exclusion. You're not trying to go up against them, their budget's going to kill your budget potentially. So, you can preemptively exclude, like it can be kind of a thoughtful exercise of like, here's what I never want to pop on. I highly recommend actually putting preemptive exclusions of like anything political, especially if you have broad match stuff. Like I've seen things happen where people are looking for t-shirts for a political cause or something. And if you have some kind of broad match term for custom t-shirts, and there's something going on in the world, you may want to really quickly kind of get ahead of those types of things. So that's part one, is like being thoughtful and really thinking, Matt, like you were saying, where you don't want to be, like what you want to make sure you don't ever show up on. And then I think there's the other exercise of going through search terms a couple times a week, making at least an exercise of going through those once a week and just excluding the ones that you kind of are finding are just irrelevant for your business.
So you asked or said something there that I know is not on our plan probably to talk about, but I need to know. I just have no idea. So you just dropped a bomb on me that I hadn't even thought about. If Custom Ink is spending, let's make up a number, $10,000 a month. I'm not going to go that crazy. $10,000 a month versus me maybe doing $500 a month. You're saying that I could still end up paying, but not being seen because they're kind of like just taking over because they're spending so much more money. How does that work again? If like a competitor spending more than you are, you're still going to spend, but you're going to show way farther down that list. So it's kind of like, hey, maybe not worth spending. Is that kind of right?
Potentially. It really depends. Like from having looked a lot at, Custom Ink has the budget to go really broad. And like kind of where we started this conversation is where I think one of the biggest opportunities for print shops is to go with opposite. It's to go really specific. Go where people are specifically looking for you. They're not doing that, So I would avoid, especially if you're starting out and you're starting on a budget, going with really, really broad terms. Really broad terms that are overly generic. Then that's kind of you're opening yourself up to get hit with just trying to compete for the cost per click that like Custom Ink is driving up. Did that answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Let me ask you another question. You mentioned that there's been a recent uptick since COVID. What are some trends you noticed that are going on right now? What are some trends people are bidding on and that you're seeing?
Yes, so that's a really fun question. There's like a little insights tab in ads, and one of the first things I saw when I hopped on was that just in general, the screen printing space broadly has like really grown. I think it was something like 25% kind of compared to last year, and people just searching for not just like custom t-shirts, but a lot of people are getting into this business. There's a huge increase and uptick in people looking for like kits to get started, cheap screen printing equipment. So I think that there is a lot of influx, especially kind of with the growth, of a lot of kind of like the fulfillment model, or everyone now wants to be a brand. Everyone wants to be printing and creating their own things. So I think we're kind of in this bubble of a lot of people jumping on this game. And everybody in this chat has the benefit of like already being, in the game and kind of being set up. And so I think that's another reason actually why advertising is really important, is because there are a lot of people trying to get into the game today. People are looking for like literally going and trying to find a kit from Ryanette with all the crap that they need to get started. People are trying to start shops. We're seeing a lot of like increase in startup shops again. So I think that's what even makes digital advertising today so much more important, because there's a bunch of people coming in like very new school who are going to start digital first. But they don't have their shit together. So, I think it's time kind of for everybody else to also come to the digital table.
That's a really legit, honest answer that absolutely makes sense. You've got some of the newer school, like I'm kind of at the cusp of like, I wasn't born with a computer in my hand. I had it way later into like high school, but kids today, literally they've got tablets and phones. Like they're just getting this stuff. They get it. Right. So it's scary for me to think about like, okay, I'm already late to the ad game. Like I don't understand. Like Mary's dropping knowledge bombs on me left and right. I don't know any of this stuff. And thinking about, okay, well, somebody who's like fresh out of high school, who's like already great at everything computers, they're going to surpass me. But like you said, they might not have their shop in line yet. They might not know how to like actually print a good underbase. They might not be able to actually turn and burn units, right? So where I've got the advantage is different than where they've got the advantage, but they're going to catch up with experience. So if I'm not trying to kind of like work out that new muscle as well, at some point I could be surpassed, right? And it might be literally the digital ad game that is what beats me. So if I'm not jumping into it now and learning and starting to work that muscle out while they're starting to also build up their shop, I'm kind of like prematurely putting the nail in my business's coffin. So I think it's really important. Again, we've kind of circled around this a few times in these chats, is we've got to always be kind of taking those next steps and utilizing what's out there. And this is still scary to me. I'm sure be hitting Mary up on the personal all the time. Be like, hey, Mary, quick question. And she's gonna be like, I'll bill you. What she should too. And kind of like figure this out as I go. Cause it, like you said, they might not have it together now, but they will. If they're starting off in the digital ad space, they might be beating you at some point. So it's a really, really important thing that you said there that I wanted to make sure we pointed out.
For sure. A question I'm having is, how important is the ad copy? What are you trying to write when you're writing these ads? And does phrasing and formatting matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's pretty strict rules around how much space, like how many characters you get to write your copy. You get like 30 characters, so not words. You just get 30 characters for, most of your headlines. We're talking, search ads. And you get 90 characters to write descriptions. And one of, I think, the biggest keys is like when you're doing, again, we kind of go back to goals. So if my goal is to get somebody to click that link, fill out a form, become a lead, or buy that shirt, then the goal is really like direct response. And direct response, I think, like copywriting, and I've got another link that I'll throw in the chat there, is all about like, how are you gonna, it's a psychological play. So in as few characters as possible, as simply as you can, how do you let somebody know that they should click because you're the best? Like, one of the things that we found has been most successful is starting out with like a social proof statement. So 3,000 plus shops from around the world trust Printavo. We're trusted. Click on it. We're the best. And so I think that there's a difference between like some of the copy that people write in social or some of the kind of the blog copy. I think in ad copy, the goal is to be more forward. It is to say, hey, we have free shit if you pick this thing. It is to entice somebody, like a free trial, 15 days. Click in, like you're gonna get a bonus gift. We talk a lot about, like, I think there's a lot of shame on the direct response game. But it's what's sold like billions of dollars worth of stuff on like QVC. Like there is an art to like getting people to act now. And, simple is always best. Like for people who are kind of new or don't really know much about what direct response is kind of exactly, I'm going to drop this in the chat. If you want to check it out, HubSpot does a really nice job really talking through lots of different marketing principles, but this is a good kind of talk on direct response. So ad copy is huge. If nobody clicks on it, if you don't start with something clickable, then you're not going to get to your end goal either. And so be really clear. Make sure that what people see on the other side is what you're telling them up front. And try to focus on that direct response, like especially for search ads, for generating leads. Like somebody's going to pick your shop. Why should they pick your shop? What are they going to get for picking your shop? What can they expect? And, then kind of take them to the water, which is signing up, filling out your form.
Question, this might be a dumb one. Once you go live with an ad, can you edit that ad or is it as it is?
Absolutely. You can edit that ad. And there's all different ad types, without like being conscious of the fact that we have 6 minutes. You can even set up tests of your ads. So if you want to see how like one would perform against the other, it's a pretty simple thing to set up a test within Google. If this was helpful to you guys, like I'd love to do a deeper dive of like setting up an entire account. This is just kind of a test run of really seeing, if this is something that like shops really want to learn more about. But one of the, and there's also like, if you're doing kind of a responsive search ad, so that's a different ad type, you're able to write lots of different headlines and it starts picking the ones that perform most. And so in this space, you're writing a lot. And you can kind of pick and choose the different things that you want to test. So there's a lot of opportunity. You're not like stuck with the thing you write forever.
So it's not like an Instagram where I like throw $30 and like promote this. Then I'm like, I typoed a major word and I can't change it. It doesn't work like that. Like I can actually go back and like, oop, I typoed. I can actually adjust that or make those changes and not have it really be a hiccup.
Yeah, and you can have lots of variations. You can have lots of variations. You can test lots of things out, and that's the best way to do it. Is to see what works, see what people click on. Create 4 or 5 ads, essentially asking people to do the same thing, all leading to the same place, and see which one performs the best. So like there's two, if you want to see if ad copy is performing, how ad copy performs against each other, then you want to look at the click-through rate, right? So that's like in Google, it's I think CTR, click-through rate. That's how it's abbreviated. The higher the click-through rate, that means, the more people are clicking at it. Like it's the clicks over the impressions that you're getting on that advertisement. So if you run, something really simple goal, right? 4 or 5 ads, all committed to trying to achieve that one goal. Start with just one campaign. And after 30 days, see which of those ads had the highest click-through rate. And then you can kind of learn about like, what is it about that ad that's different than the other ones? Why did 10% of people click on this and only 3% of people clicked on that? And that's where kind of like the qualitative, like psychological thinking comes into.
And maybe start searching these ads first. So start typing in some of these keywords in your Google and seeing like what's coming up for maybe local competitors. Like what words do you naturally feel you should type? Maybe ask a family member like, hey, if you're looking for what my business does, what would you type? And maybe start seeing what their brains are doing and then start kind of taking a case study and capture of like, these words are popping up a lot. These words are popping up a lot. So you start to actually kind of form things a little bit better that way too before you even go in. I hear you saying like start off and then keep an eye and make adjustments. You could probably, before you put that dollar down, already get an idea of like, what do I think may be good? Kind of start there too. Is that a good idea or no?
That's an amazing idea. It's almost like you can do this. You can have my job.
No. Hey, I'm good at like 3 things. That's about it. And this is definitely not one of those. But yeah, good to think about that.
Here's one for you. Do we want to show the ads to everybody, or do we want to exclude people from who we show the ads to?
Yeah, I love that question, Nick. Exclusions are super important. I think like, we've been talking about negative keywords. Exclusions are the other key. So, one, I think a really important exclusion, if you go into your ads, like if you go into your audiences on Google Ads, if you have even your account open, or if you've never created an account, maybe this is a nice little note to make. You can click on exclusions and you can add audience exclusions. You can add people by like groups, or you can add people about where they are. So one thing, make sure that you're excluding international, unless you're trying to sell internationally. I don't know what your business goals are, but if you're really only trying to sell locally, only choose to run your ads in your state to start. Unless you're trying to maybe expand and you're really into doing, you're into shipping all over. Like exclusions are super key. I think geographic exclusions are the easiest ones to hit, and they're ones that also people forget to add to their accounts. And so oftentimes you find yourself spending a lot of money advertising to people who could never even buy your product, or really who aren't in your market at all, because they're not, in the States or in Canada or wherever you're, trying to reach.
Makes sense.
Rapid fire. Going to give you another one. How long do I know if it's working or not? How you mentioned 2 weeks earlier, but like, should I be checking every day? Should I be checking every hour? When should I change? When should I calibrate? How long should I wait to see results?
Okay, so here's what I would look at. You launch your ads. You got to give it like a couple weeks to see if you're going to start generating those conversions. And we didn't really get to setting those up today, but that's all right. We can talk about that later. Here's what I recommend. If you've been running them for 2 weeks and your click-through rate is like less than 1%, something's really wrong. If your click-through rate's probably less than like 3%, something's wrong. Your ads are not good. The copy's not good, or you're advertising to people who are not relevant. Pause that. Pause it, take a step back, get back in the driver's seat. You maybe need to start writing some new copy, maybe you need to rethink something, or, you know, you got to go look at like what search terms are popping up. I think when you start new though, and you start fresh, what you should be doing is what I was kind of showing you guys earlier. Exclude places, exclude keywords, exclude search terms. Keep an eye, especially on any broad match terms that you're running, because they'll bring in a lot of junk, but they're also kind of important for like broadening your audience. It's a hard, you know, balance to find, but keep an eye on it. Give it at least 2 weeks. But if your click-through rates after like week 1 are still super duper low, then something's off with your copy and you're going to want to revisit it, or something's off with who's seeing it.
Totally. And then last question I'm going to ask on behalf of Kevin here. Kevin's wondering, did Google Shopping change? He says in November he got hit with misrepresentation until he fixed stuff on his website, and they still aren't really sure how they corrected the issue. So bottom line, did Google Shopping change, Mary? Have you heard anything about that?
You know, they're always doing micro changes, especially around kind of rules and regulations. There's a lot changing in how people are allowed to present themselves and how we're allowed to track users, especially going through this year. I can't speak exactly, you know, to like what may have happened back in November, but, you know, they're always switching things up. And so, you know, I keep an eye on, I actually will subscribe to like a lot of Google Ads updates just so that I can keep an eye on what's coming down the pipeline from a change perspective.
Awesome. And then, yeah, I guess to conclude, what are the big takeaways? Mary, wrap it up for us. If we're just starting, like Matt, what do we do? What's the big takeaways from our talk today?
1, why do you want to do this? Think about why you want to do this. Any kind of advertising. Let's remove Google Ads from it. Are you trying to grow leads? Are you trying to sell more one-off goods? What are your growth goals? And then I'd start going, you know, from there. Think about, if I was to set up a campaign today then associated with this goal, do I have everything I need to get started? Do I have a landing page? Do I have a form? Do I have somebody ready to answer that on the back end? Make sure you're operationally tight, you know, like that if you do start putting the money into this, that you're ready to kind of catch things on the other side. And if you feel kind of good about all of that, then, you know, give it a try. And if you're starting to find some traction, maybe you're actually finding you have a high click-through rate, but you're not converting, then that's where I would take the next step to really start considering investment, maybe in a third party. You know, I'm Mary at printavo.com. You guys can always reach me if you have a question, if you want to know if like somebody trying to sell their services to you is legit. Happy to help. But those are the takeaways, you know, think through what you want to do and where you want to grow. And I think that's the best way to roadmap where to go next with building out your first campaign. Amazing.
That sounds like a plan. I think a lot of people watching this are going to make a lot of money. That's good. We love to do that. We are doing Printavo Universities all the time. We're doing another one in 2 weeks. We're going to talk to Amy at the Red Bear Print House about community engagement. Really excited to hear about that, how to actually market and sell to a community. But from this talk, I could tell you guys all love hearing about digital advertising. So we're going to be having Mary back on chatting about it some more. Love Pedro's idea about an Instagram ad webinar. Totally. Yeah. So do follow us on this brand new streaming platform, livestorm.co. We just started using it. We'd love it. Give us a follow. And then you can also find all these videos archived on our YouTube channel. So, of course, follow us there, Printavo YouTube, on more of that. And if you don't have Printavo yet, how about you email me? Email me over at sales@printavo.com. And if you do have it and you want to ask questions, you want to learn more, how about customer success at printavo.com? Okay, great one. Been awesome hanging with everybody. Thank you so much, Mary. This was so informative. Learned so much. Oh, thank you.
Killer.
Success at printavo.com. And we'll be seeing y'all again in just 2 weeks. All right, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary. Solid one.
Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate all of you. Mary at printavo.com if you have any questions. Bye. Happy Thursday.
Thanks all.